Yet older schools have grossly deteriorated equipment. Why?
I would like to know why. You know, when I say again, I don't know what's happening to the equipment, but I do know that it's not equally done across the system. And that's a shame. I don't know whether or not the schools know how to request this or know what the materials are that's out there that they might need. But if you get a brand new school, you get everything brand new in the school. You get all the new equipment and everything. I remember a couple years ago, Prenesium boards were the thing. I mean, I saw Prenesium boards in closets. I saw Prenesium boards everywhere, you know. And teachers was telling me about that, was that the fact that they had these boards, but they hadn't had real training to be able to operate the boards, to be able to use it within instructions. I think that first of all, I think that all schools should have the same equipment in the school, period. If one school is getting something whether it's new, and that school that's old does not have it, they should have it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reed.
Yeah, all the schools were given Prometheum boards, and they all got brand new ones. The way the school system, we have a CIP, which is a building budget, then we have an operational budget, so this money's come out of different areas. We haven't gotten any support from the state for a lot of these issues and a lot of these equipments and boards and copiers and Xerox machines and computers. So we've had to be very careful on where that equipment goes. It's an enormous amount of money. We have 96 school buildings, 11 high schools, 14 middle schools, and 56 elementary schools. So it's an incredible amount of equipment that goes out there. And it's based on needs. All of it's based on needs. So as soon as we find out from the principal something that they have equipment that they need, we try to replace it.
Ms. Holtz.
I think your term grossly maintained is probably not correct. We do have money allocated every year in the budget for maintenance, and it's quite a bit. Roof repair, you know, electrical work. So we do maintain schools. There is a bit of a problem. No, it's not a problem, but just the way stuff is done. When money is allocated for a new school, it's allocated just for that purpose, and you can't touch it. I was the computer resource specialist at Thorogood, and early on, I mean 10 years ago, when we didn't have a lot of electronics in the school, we had 4 whiteboards in the school. In Diamond Springs, every single classroom had one. And I said, oh my God, just give us a couple. And they said, you cannot do that. These funds were allocated for that purpose, and we don't share them. But that's just the way it is. We have no control over that.
Mr. Cloud.
I'll kind of take a twist on this answer. I was one of the school board members in 2010 that fought to go and make sure that we had equitable resources across. There was a board member at the time who wanted to go and take technology money and provide it for bonuses for all of our staff. And while I would like very much for staff members to receive bonuses as thank yous and for their hard work that they're doing, by going and saying, no, we're not going to do that, and fighting and advocating for that, 18 schools actually were finished with the technology they needed. One of the things you need to look at is that when you have mandates come down from your state and federal government, it limits on what you can do with your funding. So if you have to do these things, if you have to go and make sure food is at a certain rate in your cafeteria with little funding coming from it, where do you take the money? You have to go and cut it from somewhere else to make sure you're accomplishing this. So it's not just a very easy cut and slice here. It is simply you have to look at the entire budget. So it is unfortunate if we can't replace. We do the best we can, but there we go.
Thank you very much. By the way, I want all the candidates to know that I've never seen these questions before just now. Just so you know, this is coming from our audience and their thoughts. So
We know how you feel.
Exactly.
Mr. Reed, this one's, you can start off with the next one. With the U.S. falling behind other countries in math scores, the VBTA policy dissuades teachers from assigning homework and limits homework to a maximum 5% of the grade. What is your policy on homework?
first of all, the United States is not falling behind in the scores, literally, because apples and oranges. In other countries, they at the middle school ages, they start separating children that are going to go into trades, and the smart, so-called smart children that are going to go into later education. Those are the only ones that get tested. In America, we test every child, and every child has an opportunity to rise up and do better. That's number one. Number two, I support not dumping too much homework on children. I mean, homework, I distinctly remember homework. I hated it. I never did it. I'll tell you that right now. As a school board member, it's a horrible thing to say. But I wasn't real big on homework. So I think that just like when you go to work, you should do your work while you're at work. And the teachers and the curriculum should support that. And there should be some homework after school, a little bit, just to keep the kids on par after school and work with their parents, but not a lot. I agree with that.
Ms. Holtz?
The question was about the I agree with homework. I take charge of my grandson who's in kindergarten every morning, and I drive him to school at noon. He's in the afternoon session. I'm doing homework with him. And believe me, it's tough sometimes. Just not that I don't understand it. It's just getting him to do it and practice. When you got to do 10 apples, you know, if you got to do 10 apples and color them, that's a problem. He could have done 3 and understood it because it's colors. Whatever. We do have homework guidelines in the school system.
Are you sure?
Yeah, we do.
I need a few more seconds. He's interrupting me.
Yeah.
But, I don't think homework really should be graded. Why? It's practice. The teacher is supposed to teach. You give a little bit of practice just to see that your brain has absorbed it, and that's what it should be. Practice on what was taught during the day. And that is helpful. Kids write spelling lessons 10 times each. I was criticized in the past for not giving them a grade for that. To me, anyhow, that's how I feel.
When I was a teacher, what I did was, I tried to do interesting things. I know a lot of people didn't like the everyday mathematics system, but I actually was in the pilot program in Florida that taught that. But the long story short of it is you can actually make homework a family event. Not just to have a family actually participate or making sure the child does it, you can get them involved in. Let's take a step back here, and why I bring this up is parents need to know what their kids are doing. This is our responsibility as parents. And by having homework, it gives you that insight to know what your child is learning. That's when you notice the Common Core papers that come home that make no sense at all. We need to take responsibility for our children's education again. And we've allowed it to go by the wayside. So by not having homework, how do you know what your child is doing? When my kids are now in high school, I don't know what they're doing as much because I don't have to sit there and help with homework. And it's a negative to me to not have that insight to what my children are doing.
Ms. LeBeau?
Well, I can agree with what most everybody has already said. And I want to add to the homework piece because I did give homework in my years, my 27 years, but my homework was not graded. It was a practice. And you know what the homework was for me? It was a link between my classroom and their home. They knew exactly what I was doing in that classroom. My homework was reinforcement skills. And I kept in touch with parents simply because they knew exactly what I was doing in the classroom. Homework also prepares you for later on, like in college and other places, because you're going to have to leave that classroom and go and do work. I've been in school pretty much all my life, and you have to have that tolerance part of that to be able to know that you have to do that. And I just think homework is a discipline. It's a part of a discipline that you come on. Now, how long? It all depends on how old that student is, that child is. It could be a 5 minutes homework, it could be a 10 minutes homework, all of them.
Thank you,
Not all
Ms.
evening.
This next question, Ms. Holtz, you will start. We read articles indicating the negative impact on students beginning going to school too early. Would you support changing the school schedule? Would you support teaching more in summer months?
Are you talking about starting the day early or extending the school year?
No.
No?
I mean, both questions.
Oh. No, I would like to see a pre-Labor Day start to the school year, so that when the calendar is really tight, like coming up real soon, Labor Day starts, I think, on September 8th. There's a whole week there that we're missing, and when we set out the time for a spring break or Christmas break, you're going to have trouble kind of fitting our 183 days into that. As far as the early start, Chesapeake has the elementary kids going first, the middle school second, and the high school third. When I mentioned that to several people, parents were thought, oh my God, my kids are going to be out in the dark. Well, somehow or other, they managed that in Chesapeake and it's created no problems. That would solve our problem here in the beach when we have problems with the high school kids not meeting the minimum hours in the classroom. You could expend the high school day without extending anyone else's.
Ms. McLeod?
It is a very difficult thing to go and change the schedule. You are going to tick off at least 30 to 40% of the people, no matter what decision you make. Research shows that the high school age students, teenage type students, they learn better if they get a later sleep. It's because they stay up later. Yeah, it's because they stay up later, and I have those children right now, so I can speak from actually what's happening in my own household. So would it be nice to go and switch and have our high school schedule later? Yes, it would. So I am absolutely okay with looking at it and studying it. I know that it's been talked about for a number of years. Now that the high school athletic league has changed our conferences all around, I know my daughter's waiting to go for a tennis lesson. She has to wait, or a tennis match against somebody in Chesapeake. They have to wait and have a later match because they go later. So it's a difficulty there. I believe that at some point in time, the federal government is going to make our school year extended. I think it's going to come down as a mandate.
Mr. Burr?
Due to the fact there is a bus stop in front of my house, and I'm just very passionate about this. I hate to see 5 and 6 and 7-year-old kids, students standing outside my house in the dark. Matter of fact, I leave on my light so that they can have some light there. I watch the cars that come down my street, a pretty safe street, but all streets are not like that. And I am concerned about, I don't care how we make it up and how to do it, I am concerned about the safety of our students on the street. Now, some people, parents bring their kids and sit in the car with them, and that's great, but every parent can't do that. They have to go to work. And so I am very, very concerned about the safety of our students on the street early in the morning. I mean, any of our students, high school, middle, or elementary. I am very, very passionate about that.
Mr. Reed?
I'm going to do this in 1 minute real quick. If you change the hours, you got to talk to the students because students have sports and work. The parents have schedules and child care issues with the high school students watching the little kids. The teachers have issues with the hours and their schedules and their daycare and things like that. So you got to talk to all the stakeholders if you're going to do something like this and get the input from everybody. I've always reached out to the community to find out what the answers are, what they would like to see. But there is information and there is some data saying high school students learn better if they come to school later. Also, that would take them off of, because high school students, a lot of them drive to school in the morning. They're out driving with the professional people trying to go to work. So you got these amateur drivers with the professional drivers. They're on the highway together, and the school buses early in the morning for the others are on the road. So it would take the high school kids to drive to school out of that equation in the morning and make it a little safer for them. I went to school I'm out of time.
All right, Sam, we'll get back to you.
All right.
Ms. McLeod, this question, what can be done to increase minority participation in the gifted programs and academies?
One of the things that while I was on school board that I encouraged and it actually was passed is students are taught, for those of you who don't know, students take the gifted placement test in first grade to determine whether or not they will be in the gifted cluster class if they qualify or whether they'll be afforded the opportunity to go to Old Donation Center. But then when I served on school board, we did go and we made it so that every 5th grader was retested again because there's a maturity factor there and how well possibly the kids are able to take the test, understand the instructions. So that is one of the ways to try to make sure by adding that additional testing opportunity in there that catches some of the kids that you might have missed at a younger age. Regarding minorities specifically, gifted kids aren't smarter, they just learn differently. They're not, so I don't think we should go and get really bogged down in making sure we have, that it is because of the way they learn. My kids, I'll truly tell you why I think they both qualify to be in the gifted program. It's because when they were bored, I dumped over the recycling can and I said, build something. There you go.
Mr. Burke?
How about that for you?
Well, that has been an issue in the Virginia Beach community for a long time, from minority students as far as gifted. I get phone calls every year from parents. It seems to me, and I'm not in an individual school, nor am I sitting on the board. Next year, when I'm on the board, I probably will know this answer. But the thing of it is that when each school, we're supposed to have guidelines that follows who's selected for the gifted program. But even though we have those guidelines, I feel, and a lot of people feel, that these guidelines are not always followed. How they're looking at the students, how they're being selected. I know people that have moved their students out of Virginia Beach schools because their kids were gifted and was never tagged as gifted. So I just think that even though we have guidelines, I don't think the guidelines are always followed for certain students.
Mr. Reed?
Thank you. We have a gifted committee that goes through and looks at all this information. Every single child can be tested. Every parent can ask for their child to be tested. It's a very open and transparent process that anybody can ask and find out. I think it's one of the most fairest and open programs certainly in this area. So to say that there's something going on back there and the program's not being followed, it's not the case. Absolutely not the case. Every child in the first grade and in the fifth grade can be tested. And all the parent has to do is say, test my child. And then the process after that for the committee is very open and transparent. It's not just one person or three people, it's a group of folks. There's principals involved, there's school administrators involved, and it's all on record. So it's a very open process, and I wish more parents would have their kids tested.
I just like to say, I could give you, and I won't give you names in school, that they have asked the students to be tested for gifted, and they were not for an entire 2 years. And that's where I'm talking about. They have said to me, what's the next step we will take? We have requested this, and this has not happened. So I do know that is this the kind of policy in Virginia Beach? Of course, we would like to think so. But I'm getting phone calls from parents that say, I have requested this 2 years ago, and my child still has not been tested.
Ms. Holtz?
I must agree with everything Sam said, which is quite unusual. I do think we have a very fair system. I taught for 30 years, and teachers will sometimes say, I think this child wants to be tested. Any parent at any time can say they want their child to be tested. I think it's a fair system. Sometimes children come to school and they're very active, and you can be very bright and be a wonderful functioning member of society, not be gifted. In fact, the really excellent people in our society who make it move are B+A students. Sometimes these gifted kids, I think maybe I should stop here. They just simply the drama. My daughter was gifted. The drama involved in that. My other son was a B+A student. Oh, it was just so nice to talk to him.
Can I take my first 1 minute rebuttal type of thing here? Is that, here's the thing, is every student has a gift. Every single student has a gift. It is our job as a community, it is our job as teachers, it is our job as parents to help find those gifts and help them expand that and develop it. It does not come with having a label in a file in your school record that says you are gifted, that determines your value and your worth.
Thank you very much. This concludes the question and answer portion of that debate this morning. We're now going to go to the 1-minute closings, and we're going to start with Ms. LeBeau.